would like to thank Amir Givon, first and foremost, the chair of BINA, for making this conference. Kol hakavod, Amir. And to Nomi Light and Shira Shimoni and Ariel Blumenthal. And special thanks for ILC. Eli Tene is here for sponsoring this event. Thank you, Eli. Toda rabba. I would also like to recognize my colleagues from the Consulate. There's Moria Blumenfeld and Caroline Benatan and Marina Rozhansky. And who else? All of them? Cool. That's it, okay. And so thank you for coming too. Our advocacy efforts oscillate between two poles. One is the conflict, the Palestinians, the Iranian issues, flotilla, Gaza, Hamas, rockets, and this kind of stuff. And beyond the conflict, the startup nation, the technology, the 21C Israel, the desalinization, the solar energy, the Better Place car, and so on and so forth. And we like to see ourselves as a modern and advanced country among not so advanced countries, perhaps a Lexus in a neighborhood full of clunkers. Sophisticated, luxurious, and trendy. The problem is that probably we're only a Toyota. Well-built, good quality, but just like Toyota, we have too many recalls. And in the case of Israel, I must say many of them are unjustified. Taking one example, in 2002 in Jenin, when the Palestinians cried out throughout the world media saying that Israel is massacring 500 kids, women, children, it turned out that 50 terrorists were killed, as well as 23 Israeli soldiers that went out inside the terrorist camps in order not to kill civilians. But they went out in the media, and the outcome was very detrimental to Israel. And we have many other examples, whether it's in Gaza, after bombarding and targeting the Israeli civilians in the southern part of Israel, then Israel is blamed after it goes all the way in order to prevent civilian casualties. Again, Israel takes the blame. So in order to continue the automobile metaphor, they try to portray Israel not as a Lexus and not even as a Toyota, but as a destructive bulldozer. And this is precisely what we're here today, and this we're going to touch in this conference. How can we better manage Israel's twofold campaign? Addressing the negative, too often false accusations, and at the same time, building a brand of a 60-year-old democracy with outstanding achievements and getting even better. But I want to address, before we'll address throughout these coming hours, the question, what we'll do to address the we. When we say we try to do it. Who are these we? The pro-Israel camp, and perhaps it's better say today a pro-Israel tent. Who is in it? In this Weekend Jewish Journal, you'll find an exchange of ideas between David Suissa and Daniel Siradsky. It all started when Siradsky, a Jewish liberal progressive, that's according to his own account, tweeted that he officially gives up on Israel and that he will now go back to caring about everything else. First, some facts that Siradsky bases his decision on are simply not true. For example, he states in his response over there, the government has instructed public officials not to meet with J Street delegates. That's an example. And this is not true. We meet with J Street just as we do with many other Jewish and non-Jewish organizations supportive or critical of Israel. We do it here in LA, and pleasant surprise to see here Sirena. And we do it in Washington, our ambassador in Washington, and we do it in Jerusalem, and we do it everywhere, meet all kinds of organizations. And I want to make the case for a big tent as possible, inclusive, agreeing on core issues. We can all stand behind one flag, which is a strong democratic Jewish state, insecure borders, and on the other hand, opposing BDS. This can't coincide with the pro-Israel activity, And another crucial point would be supporting all initiatives that will debilitate Iran. In this coalition, from right to left, Democrats, Republicans, Jews and non-Jews, evangelicals, gays, Latinos, even lawyers. It's not an option, but an existential need for Israel. Excluding individuals and organizations we don't agree with on all issues is against our own interest. In spite of the issues we have with some of these organizations, and we do disagree on some points, we have to make an effort to keep all the individuals and people who want to be inside the tent inside it, part of it. And if someone writes himself off, then we can't do much about it. But again, the big tent to confront the challenges in front of us is essential for Israel. And the challenges are endless. The most immediate one, not the most dangerous, but a serious one, will come next month in September, when the Palestinians are going to ask on September 20, are going to ask that the Security Council to recognize a Palestinian state, and this will probably be vetoed by the US, and then they will go to the General Assembly where they have an automatic majority, and any proposal of resolution they'll bring up will be adopted. But the main battleground is in the media, capturing the hearts and minds of the people. And once again, we found ourselves in an uphill battle, where the Palestinians are campaigning for a state while denying the right of the Jewish people to have their own. So the goal of this conference is to be better prepared for this challenge, as well as many others awaiting ahead. And at the top, the most serious issue, and one can't overstate it and say time and again, is the Iranian issue. And the Consulate is a resource to confront all these challenges. And Caroline, Moria, and Marina, among them, and many others in the Consulate, can be of assistance, a resource, a very rich resource in many aspects. One is we have speakers coming over from Israel, whether it's politicians, whether it's scientists, whether it's artists, coming over. There's a new project now by the CEO of El Al, who is the former head of the Israeli Air Force, Shkedi, who recruited the entire personnel of El Al for the Hasbara task, and pilots and stewardess and others will be assigned to different audiences according to their expertise and their capabilities. This is just one example. Others is we have talking points, inside briefing on all these issues. I just saw that Stand With Us put some of the stuff we gave in the last Young Professionals we had at the Consulate on the website, and so on and so forth. We have movies. We have rights to many Israeli movies, and those of you who are familiar know that the Israeli movie scene has improved tremendously in the last few years, and we pitched this movie to all audiences. In the last few months, we did a huge mileage with the American movie, which is named Strangers No More. How many of you saw it? Okay. So Strangers No More is an American movie. It won the Oscar in the short documentary. It's about Bialik Rogozin School in Israel, which addresses exactly some of the accusations against Israel, the apartheid state. Here you have an American movie not an Israeli movie, which is even better, because had it been an Israeli, it would probably also criticize Israel. Beautiful American movie about how Israel is not apartheid. And not an apartheid state, and we pitched it to universities and campuses as much as we can, and we are going to continue doing this. And you are invited to contact the Consulate. Those who are here, you'll get at the entrance, there's a piece of paper in which this one with the cell phones and office numbers and emails and all the information and sort of services the Consulate can help you in our joint endeavor. And of course, who is not on our Facebook group? Or who is? Okay, so those, again, you can see israella.org, we have a closed Facebook group in which we share information on all relevant issues. And I would like to end with a short quotation from this weekend's Jewish Journal, referring the issue I mentioned with this Sidarsky and David Swissa's correspondence. So a guy wrote to the Jewish Journal after listening to what Sidarsky said, and this is what he had to say, and with this I'll conclude. At my place in life cycle, aged 86, all I feel I can do is support those people and organizations who work for bringing the sun back into Israel life. It isn't much, but my love for the country continues unshaken in spite of the problems. Dick Gunter, 86. Thank you very much.